you doing? My name is Alex, and today I'm going to be doing my review on the Cursed Child play. That rhymed. I saw the Cursed Child play on Broadway on the 9th of September 2018, and boy, do I have a lot of opinions about it. So this is the review. I did film another video on my experience going to see Cursed Child. So if you want to watch me embarrass myself in front of Anthony Boyle, you can click the link in the description. Basically, these are my thoughts on the play. I wrote them all down on my handy dandy iPhone. When I first read Cursed Child, I wasn't a big fan. Didn't really like it that much. Only thing I liked about it was Scorpius and kind of Albus. And then when I watched the play, I was like, this is the best thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Obviously, there's still problems with the story itself, but everything else is just absolutely incredible. Like, if you have the money to go see the play, I 100% recommend it. Let's just get started. Firstly, I'm gonna start off with the bad stuff, and this is mostly the thoughts I had while I was reading it, as well as like when I was seeing the play. Spoilers if you haven't read or seen Cursed Child, obviously. I'm literally going to be spoiling everything. If you haven't seen the play and just read the book and you're going to see the play, don't watch this video because I'm spoiling literally everything. This book has like time turning in it. Like they have a time turner and they turn time in it. It's different to how time turning works in Prisoner of Azkaban. In Prisoner of Azkaban, everything is just like a circle. It's linear. If a person has went back in time, you see the effects in real time. In this one, there are like alternate realities and it's weird and I don't like it. It completely throws me off. I don't really like it. It completely messes with canon too. Like they mess with canon so much, but like they kind of set everything right, but like not really. There's this part where they go back in time for the first time to, you know, stop Cedric from like completing the first task, and they are next to Hermione in that, and Scorpius talks to Hermione. He's like, oh my god, Rose, is that you, Rose? Oh my god, Rose, what are you doing here? We're in the past, what the heck? And then Hermione's like, I want the break, I want the break. If that actually happened in the books, Hermione would 100% tell Harry and Ron about it. Like she would be like, hey, weird Durmstrang guys talking to me. So it completely messed with canon in a lot of different ways, but that's the only one that comes to my mind right now. The second one is Cedric being a Death Eater, which absolutely makes no sense to me whatsoever. Like after they go back in time the second time, you know, and like inflate Cedric and have him float out of the lake during the second task, and he gets like humiliated. That, for me, Cedric Diggory is like, first of all, Hufflepuff as fuck. It's like no Hufflepuff would ever become a Death Eater just because they got humiliated. That's not the Hufflepuff way. It's like no evil Hufflepuff. You can't be in Hufflepuff and turn out evil. That's kind of the whole point of being a Hufflepuff. Like every other house has a Death Eater except Hufflepuff. I think that tells you something about Hufflepuffs. That wouldn't happen. Cedric would get humiliated and then laugh it off because that's who Cedric is as a person. So he would never, ever become a Death Eater. Even if he did become a Death Eater, he wouldn't kill anyone. He wouldn't kill Neville. Voldemort having a daughter with Bellatrix? I don't think I have to explain why that doesn't make sense, so I'm just gonna move on. The way they pronounce Voldemort, I don't give a shit if you wanted to pronounce it in the French way, J.K. Rowling, okay, but it's Voldemort. It's always been pronounced Voldemort. Whenever they said Voldemort, I wanted to cry because I'm like, that is so stupid. Harry and Ginny's chemistry. I love both of the actors, how they portrayed the characters. Loved it. Loved Ginny so much. Loved Harry so much. But together, they still had no chemistry. And that's no fault of the actors, mind you. It's just that Harry and Ginny have never had chemistry, romantic chemistry. They have chemistry as friends, and I definitely saw that when they were playing it. Like, they had a really good friendship dynamic, Harry and Ginny. But every time they had like this like romantic scene together, I was just kind of like... If you don't know, a while ago I made a video on Cursed Child and queerbaiting, and it was so much stronger in the play. I literally have a whole section called Scorbus. First example I have is after they went back in time the first time, they changed the reality, and Albus was a Gryffindor, and he was in the hospital wing, and Harry was talking to him, and Harry was like, "You can't see Scorpius anymore. He is the black cloud around you. Scorpius is evil." And Albus was like, "First of all, have you met Scorpius?" The way I wrote this is Albus basically being Juliet when Harry says he can't see Scorpius anymore. Because he was literally being Juliet from Romeo and Juliet. Like, "You can't stop me from seeing him. You can't tell me what to do, father." You have to like really see it to see the queer baiting, but it's there. But there are more obvious examples. I just wanted to start with the least obvious example and work my way up. The next one, they're still in this alternate reality, and Delphi is in Hogwarts, and she's talking to Scorpius, and she's like, "Talk to him, Scorpius, talk to him, you know? Because you two belong together. But as friends, no homo." And I was just kind of like, the best friend speech they had before they went back in time the first time, it was basically like Scorpius being like, "You're my best friend, Albus, da 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 da." Then it got really quiet, and like Albus was looking at him, he was like, "You're my best friend too." And it was really sweet and cute, and I literally expected them to like kiss at that point because the way they were like looking at each other, like the longing gaze. All the times they hugged so much during the play, and I loved it the whole time. There was a scene like right at the end, right before the last scene, and literally Scorpius hugged Albus so hard that the microphone just went, I don't know how to explain it, but like it was really loud basically, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, intense hug." Friends can hug each other, but like every time they hugged, there was always like this like moment. If you watch the play, you know what I'm talking about. After they humiliated Cedric and Scorpius went back to this like Voldemort reality. This was like after Scorpius talked to Snape, and then they found like Ron and Hermione, and like Ron and Hermione got taken by the Dementors and stuff. The Dementors came to Snape and Scorpius, and one of them came down on Scorpius, and Snape was just like talking him through it and making him like kind of like rip away from the Dementor. And the way he did this was like, "Remember, you're doing this for Albus. You're doing this so you can get Albus back in that reality where Harry didn't die back, but it's for Albus." And Scorpius was like, "Yeah, I'm doing this for Albus." And it was like the cutest thing ever. But the way Snape was saying it, it kind of felt like he was relating Scorpius and Albus to him and Lily, and I think he talked about him and Lily like beforehand. I feel like I don't even have to explain these because it's just so blatantly like queer baiting. Like it's just so in your face, and then they don't kiss at the end, which sucks, but it's okay. There's a scene right before the last scene I talked about in my queer baiting video where they walk into a room and it's just like Albus and Scorpius, and Scorpius is like, "Oh my god, I can't believe that. I asked out Rose Granger Weasley," or Weasley Granger. I think it's Granger Weasley, but I might be Weasley Granger, and I don't really care. The way I read Albus's line, like, "I can't quite believe you did that either," that's exactly how he said it in the play. So I wasn't just reading that wrong. It's how he says it. He says it with like this sad kind of voice. And just in general, like Albus being sad when Scorpius talks about Rose. When he first starts talking about Rose, Albus is just kind of like angry about it because it's like Rose, everyone thinks Rose is better than him and da-da-da-da. But then like towards the end, you kind of see like it's because he likes Scorpius. And then Scorpius being jealous because Albus was, you know, owling Delphi. My literal favorite part of the whole entire play is there's this scene right after Harry tells Albus that he can't see Scorpius anymore, and there's no words in it, it's just kind of music in the background, and it's basically Albus and Scorpius walking up and down stairs and like avoiding each other, and like the stairs are moving around the stage, and there's one point where the stairs meet at the top perfectly, and Albus and Scorpius are staring at each other, but then they like look away and the stairs like break apart, and I think it's like so poetic and beautiful, but also like it's gay. So, tell me the stairs breaking apart like that is not symbolism for their hearts breaking. There's like two alternate realities. One is where Albus is a Gryffindor and not much has changed except for Rose doesn't exist and Ron is married to Padma Patil. The second AU is the bad one, basically where Harry dies, Albus doesn't exist, Voldemort is ruling the whole world, and Umbridge is there, so that makes it the worst place ever. In both AUs, Scorpius doesn't care that Rose is basically not alive. In the first one, he kind of cares when him and Albus are talking in the library, and Albus is like, okay, we're going back in time and we're gonna fix stuff and make Cedric alive, and Scorpius is like, do I look like... That's literally how he talks, and it's amazing, and I love him. He kind of like includes Rose. He's like, oh yeah, and plus Rose isn't alive. But then in like the dark reality, he doesn't even mention Rose once. All he cares about is Albus. And also like the fact that like, oh, Voldemort's alive. But also Albus is missing, and I have to get him back because he's my best friend. Best friend. Being each other's greatest weaknesses. Like when Delphi is like forcing them to go back in time and kind of like humiliate Cedric in the third task. Delphi tortures Scorpius to get Albus to do what she wants. And what she says is, I should have known your weakness is the same as your father. And then she looks at Scorpius and goes, friendship! And I just laugh because like, are you sure it's friendship? But yeah, they're in the library and basically Albus is like apologizing to Scorpius, and like Scorpius just yelled at Albus. They're both sitting in chairs facing each other, and the whole scene, I was just expecting Albus to like reach out and like grab Scorpius's hand and like comfort him in that way, but it never happened. Let's talk about the characters because I love them. Scorpius Malfoy is my favorite character in Cursed Child, and that's the tea, that's it. He is a king. Literally in one of the AUs, he's called Scorpion King, and so he's a king, and I love him so much. He is me. We're the same person. When I read it, I didn't think we were the same person, but when I saw Anthony Boyle perform as Scorpius Malfoy, I realized that we are the exact same person. We both yell when we're nervous. We both like reading books. He has anxiety. And like, hi, me too. Albus is a little angsty boy. I love him. He's a little angsty teen, and he reminds me of Harry in the 5th book. And we all know I love Order of the Phoenix Harry because he's just a little emo child. He's also a Potter that's in Slytherin, basically showing that Slytherin is not an evil house because, hey, a Potter is in Slytherin. Scorpius also shows that Slytherins are not evil because Scorpius is a blessing to this world. Draco, and in parentheses I wrote, being a gay disaster, because that's literally what he was throughout the whole play. I love Draco Malfoy so much. If you don't know this by now, then where have you been? Draco Malfoy is my favorite character out of the entire Harry Potter series, and I loved him still in Cursed Child. There was this one point where him and Harry were like starting to be friends, and he was in Harry's office. He was like behind him, and he was like, you know, in that alternate reality, I was head of magical law enforcement. Ha 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 ha. And I'm like, a gay disaster. And like, he keeps doing that. He keeps like making jokes and going, and I'm like, me. Ron. I love Ron so much. I think I'm just incapable of not loving Ron Weasley because literally I love him in the movies, the books, Cursed Child, just literally everywhere. I just love Ron Weasley. Ginny, I love Ginny so much. I just love the Weasleys, clearly. She is such a badass, and like in the movie, she's not a badass. And like when I read this, I didn't think she was that much of a badass. The way she was portrayed in the play, exactly how Ginny should have been in the movies. Exactly how Ginny is in the books. There was this one point where Draco yelled at her and was like, my son is missing, and she yelled right back, bitch. She was like, so is mine, and it was so intense, and I loved it. Hermione Granger, powerful woman, minister of magic, even though it's not canon, don't consider it to be canon, but she was just so powerful. Literally every word out of her mouth was just like, Snape, 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 Snape. We all know my opinion on Snape. I don't like him. I think he's an asshole and don't think he deserved a redemption arc. I can stand him in the movies because he's funny. Don't like him that much, but like I like movie Snape. I loved Cursed Child Snape. Like I didn't love him as much as the other characters because it's still Snape. Still didn't think Harry should have named his child after Snape. Still didn't think Harry should have named his child after Dumbledore, but like it happened. McGonagall had like the cutest Irish accent, and I loved her, and she was literally the McGonagall I know and love. That's all I have to say. McGonagall is my favorite person in the whole entire world. Umbridge. Umbridge. Oh my god, Umbridge. Let me just say, the actress who played Umbridge is like a sweetheart. I met her at the stage door and I love her. But it is Umbridge, you know? The way she portrayed Umbridge was exactly how I pictured her in my mind when I read the books. Like, the way Dolores was in the movies was really great too, but like in the play, I feel like it was literally how I imagined Umbridge. Myrtle! I loved Moaning Myrtle. Okay, I just love Moaning Myrtle anyway. Like, she is great comic relief. And she was great comic relief this time, and I loved her. And I also love the actress who plays Myrtle. And she also plays Lily Potter, and I think she's really pretty. Young Harry. First of all, amazing actor. He is so tiny. Met him at the stage door too. So tiny. And he, like from far away, looks exactly like young Harry. How he did in the movies. How I imagined him in my mind. Now let me talk about all the good things I liked about it. The Triwizard Tournament. All the tasks. The way they were portrayed on stage were amazing. Like, the first task was kind of underwhelming because all you saw was a crowd and like you heard Ludo Bagman talking and that's pretty much it, but like it was still pretty good. The second task, the way they did it was so cool and also weird. Like, Albus and Scorpius were like attached to like wires and it looked like they were swimming, but there was no water. The maze task was pretty underwhelming. I mean, you saw the Quidditch things coming down and there was like a maze, but like how would they make that overwhelming on a stage? I talked about the Scorbus stair scene. It was literally my favorite scene in the entire play. The Dementors! There were scenes with Dementors and they flew into the audience. I heard someone in front of me saying the Patronus was underwhelming, but I disagree. It was like someone holding fire, and it was Snape's Patronus. His was the only Patronus that they showed in the play. It was blue fire in the face of a doe. The opening to the second part, they were like dancing around and they're like black capes, and I was just like, oh yes, we stand dark kings and queens. The train scenes were cool, especially the one when they were on top of the train and the trolley witch came out and like all of a sudden her fingers just grew. I didn't know how to picture that. Like, in the book I pictured like black spikes coming out of her hands, but it was just her fingers grew into spikes and they looked like longer fingers. The Polyjuice scene, still don't know how they did it. Like, I understand that there were like two people in the robes and like they drew their arms back and then the other person put their arms in, they put their head in, and then the other person put their head out. But how did they leave the stage without being seen? Does anyone know? Does anyone know? The Harry and Draco scene where Draco was being a little emo boy, being like, it's exceptionally lonely being Draco Malfoy, and I was looking at Harry and waiting for him to be like, let's date. The way they delivered certain lines and stuff were like way different than like when I read it. So like there was this one line where they go back to the day before Voldemort comes and kills Harry's parents and tries to kill Harry, and there's this part where Bathilda Bagshot like comes out of her house, and in the book there's this one line where Scorpius goes, "Squeak, my geekiness is a-quivering." And when I read it exactly like how Urkel sounds, like, "Squeak, my geekiness is a-quivering." But the way he delivered it in the play, it was obvious that he was like saying it in like a joking, anxious way, and I loved it. He was like, "Squeak, my geekiness is a-quivering." And I'm like, loved it. It was great. The Godric's Hollow scene made me cry. I cried once in the beginning when they were doing the epilogue. I don't like the epilogue, but every time I watch it or read it, I start crying. The second time I cried was during the Albus and Scorpius staircase scene, because it was just very beautiful. And then the third and final time I cried was during the Godric's Hollow scene, because you heard Lily and James screaming for their lives. Voldemort walked into the audience and I didn't know what was gonna happen. I was terrified and I was like, oh my god, what is he gonna do? What is he gonna do? What is he gonna do? Like, I didn't even look at the stage. I was like looking at him and I was like, no, 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 no. If you come near me, I will use my Avada Kedavra. I bought a wand. I will Avada Kedavra you. The audience reactions were so funny. I can't remember all of them, but I do remember two. People who have read Harry Potter or watched the movie, but haven't read Cursed Child, and this is their first time hearing the story. So when Albus was sorted into Slytherin, it was like hilarious, because everyone started like which was really funny to me. There's also this part where Delphi was sitting with Albus and Scorpius, and Albus like gave Delphi the time turner, and everyone like cringed. Every single person in the audience knew that giving the time turner to Delphi was not a good idea. The parcel tongue. I appreciate Parseltongue. Hi, I'm a Slytherin and I love snakes. Delphi's room. Oh my god, when they were in Delphi's room, Harry like used the Parseltongue and the whole entire theater lit up with a black light. And there was writing all over like the ceilings being like my father, the prophecy, and it was like so cool. When the people died, I thought it was cool. Not the fact that they died, but like the way they died. Like when Craig died, it like went in slow motion and he like slowly fell back. When they were time turning, like once it finished, like the whole theater like rippled. Like you could see the ripples, and I still don't understand how they did that. All the magic on stage, everyone was like, whoa! Like every time like something magical happened, like everyone would clap. Like there was this one point where Snape literally drew a rectangle of chalk in a chalkboard and it lit up and a door opened and everyone started clapping. Like when the Polyjuice thing happened, everyone started clapping. There were so many like magic scenes where everyone just started clapping because it was so cool, and it was literally like a play and a magic show, and I don't understand how they did any of it. That is my reactions and review of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. It was so good, guys. Thank you for watching. If you haven't seen Harry Potter and the Cursed Child play, I highly recommend it if you have enough money because it was very expensive, and I'm broke now. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the future with another video. Spock out.